I think this is attempt number 6 to do this video. I keep screwing it up. I keep getting interrupted, or it won't upload. It's just been awful. So here we go one more time. I want to show you something before I go any further though, and it's this neato lens setup that I got. I ordered it, I think I ordered it from Wish, but I'm not positive. I can't remember. But if I do remember, I'll link it down at the bottom, or if I find my packaging or whatever. Anyhow, it's a wide-angle lens setup. As it sits right now, it's wide-angle. If I were to take this larger lens off the top and just use the bottom lens, it would be set up as a macro, like for doing product shots and stuff. So I think this is really neat. We're going to go ahead and clip it on, and you can see the difference. There we go. Now I've got wide angle. I really like it. So what I'm trying to do is get to the next little video of the 4th turning. I'm not going to take you through the first third of the book because it's packed with information about generational theory, about the 100-year cycle, which is called a seculum. It's a Roman word, Latin word. And then it talks all about the seasonal progression of generations, how they each have an archetype, just lots and lots of information, very packed, how they work with one another, how they identify backward and forward. For example, I probably have more, and you probably have more in common with your great-grandparents than you do your children or your parents, although you have more in common with your grandparents, generationally speaking and societally speaking, how you view the world, your worldview. And there's just tons and tons of information about that. So I'm not going to go through that part because that actually takes, you got to read. I had to read it a couple of times to really start to tease out how all of this stuff works together. However, I have been getting some requests from people asking about preparations. I mean, you know, we are fully half into this last turning. Sometime within the next 10 or 15 years, something is going to happen that will propel us forward into the next awakening era, the next phase of how we deal with one another socially. This election could have been that thing. We don't know yet. You won't know until you see how it plays out. There may be something else that comes after our election. You know, maybe it still will be the next election. No one knows at this point. But we are marching inexorably to the end of this turning. So 10 to 15 years we have left. Probably sooner than later if this turning looks like the last few that have happened. We've had 3 actually in the United States. So what should we have been doing 20 years ago, 10 years ago to kind of prepare? What I think is interesting is so many of the people I've talked to about this all say, you know what, I kind of started doing that just instinctively. I think that's interesting. I'm one of those people that just started doing these things instinctively. So, what are these things? I am going to read them to you right now. I would love to just read you the whole book, but I'm not going to. All right, so I'm going to read the last paragraph that introduces these ideas. As in a blizzard, simple but fundamental verities, truths, will reemerge. These are the familiar elements of legend and myth that have endured over time simply because they're required in times of peril. Classic virtues that didn't necessarily pay off in an unraveling, that's when this book was written, during an unraveling. Traits like trust, reliability, patience, perseverance, thrift, and selflessness will become hard currency in a crisis. Were history not seasonal, these virtues would have long since atrophied, vanished from memory as useless to humanity. They remain in our tradition because once every seculum, every 100-year cycle, they are reaffirmed in full glory, rewarding those who embrace them and penalizing those who do not. In the epic sagas of social peril, from Beowulf to Victory at Sea, notice who prevails and what values they possess. Come the crisis, these are the myths that you will want to emulate, and these will be the values that you will need to display. To prepare yourself for the fourth turning, you would do well to apply the following lessons of seasonality. Number 1 is rectify. Return to the classic values. In the coming crisis, sharp distinctions will be drawn between people who can be counted on and those who cannot. Build a reputation as a person of honor and integrity who values self-restraint, family commitments, cultural decency, and mutual trust. Be a good citizen in your town, a good neighbor on your block, a good work partner on the job. Be mannerly and adhere to public standards of conduct. Expect your community reputation to matter far more than it does now. The fourth turning will not be kind to the free agent or organization with a reputation for discarding loyalties, revising settled deals, or pressing every point of leverage. The more your bottom line is interwoven with other people's and your communities, the more helpful these other people and public officials will be in an emergency. Expect to be dealt with according to the reputation of your group. Regardless of your current institutional advantage, if your business is perceived as predatory, your profession as parasitical, or your influence as corrupting, then you will be personally at risk. I have to yawn. I didn't sleep well last night. Gosh, I was so cold. All of a sudden it went from hot to cold. Anyhow. Converge. Heed emerging community norms. In a fourth turning, the nation's core will matter more than its diversity. Team, brand, and standard will be new catchwords. Anyone and anything not describable in those terms could be shunted aside, or worse. Do not isolate yourself from community affairs. Being unplugged could penalize you at a time you might need to know what all levels of government are doing just to meet your most basic of needs. Appearances will matter. Justice will be rough, because society will require more order but have fewer resources and less time to impose it. As technicalities give way, innocent people will suffer. If you don't want to be misjudged, don't act in a way that might provoke crisis-era authority to deem you guilty. If you belong to a racial or ethnic minority, brace for a nativist backlash from an assertive and possibly authoritarian majority. At the height of the crisis, you might even have to choose between loyalty to the national community and loyalty to your group. Isolating yourself from people of other races or ethnicities could be risky because you may need emergency help from people you might now be able to avoid. Bond. Build personal relationships of all kinds. When the crisis hits, anonymity will be associated with discredited, unraveling era vices and feared. Direct personal linkages will be newly valued. Know the people who can help you. In the fourth turning, having well-positioned friends could be very important. High-level institutional corruption may recede, but low-level personal dealing could flourish as people seek ad hoc official favors to meet the most basic and urgent of needs. The marketplace will apply similar rules. Face-to-face contacts with everyone, neighbors, bosses, employees, customers, suppliers, creditors, debtors, public officials, and police. They will become newly important. Expect a loss of personal privacy. Fourth turnings can be dark times for the free spirit. Just as one kind of official may have new authority to do something for you, another kind, some hastily deputized magistrate, may have new authority to do something to you. Gather. Prepare yourself and your children for teamwork. In the fourth turning, the rewards will grow for people with a reputation for accepting authority and working well in teams. Integrate your skills, works, and pastimes with those of others. Stress less what sets you apart as an individual and more what you have in common with others. In business, move towards structures that combine teams and hierarchies, using technology, including computers. I think that's so cute. I mean, this was written 20 years ago. There was no way they could have known what was going to happen, internet-wise. As tools to bring people together. Raise children to excel at team virtues. Don't track kids out of the mainstream where public schools work. You should educate them there so that they can learn group skills among peers of diverse backgrounds and abilities. Expect children to develop a powerful connection with government. Your children may be inducted as they come of age, perhaps into circumstances of real danger. This is cause for worry, certainly. But given the uplifted status of youth, it should also be a cause for pride and for hope. Root. Look to your family for support. When the fourth turning arrives, your family will become your ultimate safety net. Maintain relationships of trust with your extended family, from grandparents to grandchildren, in-laws to distant cousins. As other supports weaken, your household will function best if it's multi-generational, with young and old caring for each other's special needs. At the height of the crisis, being a young retiree or living far from other family members could pose new hardships. A wealthy elder might consider transferring as many assets as possible to heirs during the unraveling, thereby avoiding the risk of confiscatory estate taxation later on. If you have no spouse or children, you should develop an alternative family-like support network among friends, neighbors, and coworkers. The fourth turning will not be a good time to be or feel socially stranded. Brace. Gird for the weakening or collapse of public support mechanisms. During the fourth turning, today's generous government supply of senior benefits, cash, health, housing, and social services, could erode sharply. Youth, not age, will be the target of civic action and reward. Unless you expect your income and wealth to be low enough to pass a means test, you should discount U.S. government promises about the reliability of Social Security, Medicare, and Medicaid, and perhaps even public employee pensions. All of these could turn out to be no more reliable than early promises about continental and Confederate dollars. You should start at once to build your own financial security. You should save plenty of money, even if that means cutting back on your current lifestyle. The best way to guarantee good health care in old age is to practice good health habits today. Expect a new triage in health care rules, and don't count on anybody else paying for the residue of your unraveling era bad habits. Discuss with your family how the burdens of old age would be shouldered if and when public assistance becomes unavailable. Prepare for the hard choices you could face in the fourth turning by reflecting on what your life and death will someday mean to others. And the last one is hedge. Diversify everything you do. Once the crisis catalyzes, anything can happen. If you are starting a career now, realize that generalists with survival know-how will have the edge over specialists whose skills are useful only in an undamaged environment. Be fluent in as many languages, cultures, and technologies as you can. Your business could face a total alteration of market conditions. Expect public subsidies to vanish, the regulatory environment to change quickly, and new trade barriers to arise. Avoid leveraged investments or long-term debt, including massive student debt. Assume that all your external safety nets, your pension, Social Security, and Medicare, could end up totally shredded. Invest heavily in equities to profit while you can during the remainder of the unraveling, but stay alert to the public mood. Keep in mind that the closer we get to the fourth turning, the risks will be greater for a great devaluation. Hedge your portfolio and include assets in foreign markets where the secular rhythms do not appear to coincide with America's. Enter the crisis with a reliable cash flow, diversified savings, and some liquid assets. Really know where your money is. Try to ensure that no one severe outcome, inflation, deflation, market crash, bank panic, default, or default on the national debt, would entirely destroy your entire asset base. If you apply these lessons, you would be risking little. Suppose you're lucky and the crisis doesn't touch you much personally. By having prepared for it, you may have lost some short-term income or pleasure, but nothing of lasting consequence. Suppose you're not so lucky. If you haven't prepared, you will have put much at risk. History warns that secular winters can be searing times for everyone, especially those who are caught entirely by surprise. No matter what your age, sex, income, race, family status, or line of work, sensible choices today could help you avoid truly desperate choices in the fourth turning. Okay, so that's interesting. That's a very conservative script that we're looking at. Conservative across the board, and I don't mean conservative as Republican. I mean conservative as conserving your resources, building your relationships with others, regardless of what side of the aisle they are on or who they voted for, regardless of where their families came from or what race they are. The people in our circle, we need to build relationships with the people in our circle, and that's everybody. We've gotten past the whole stock market day trading thing. I think people, at least for me, I would be very, very uncomfortable doing anything like that. Investing in equities at this point. No one seems to know what to invest in at this point. That's just my opinion. But I tend to be I tend to be very, very, very cautious when it comes to the idea of putting money somewhere. I want to bury it under my mattress is where I want to bury it. I don't. I mean, I go to banks, but interestingly enough, I don't use a bank that's based in the U.S. I go to the Wall Street Journal's report on banks every year, and I see what banks that do business in the U.S. are the safest, and that's where I have kept my money, what very little I've got, for several years now. So, stuff like that. I want you to, if you would, think about how maybe you did some preparing for the fourth turning, sort of instinctively, kind of the way I did. I was living in a big old house in town, 3-car garage, more room than I needed, nice area, big mortgage, car payments, blah, 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 blah. A lot of consumer debt to Visa cards and so forth. And my little voice started yammering at me, get out of debt, move out of town. Get out of debt, move out of town. Well, I went ahead and sold the place I was living in, which allowed me to buy this place cash. Then I had a little windfall of money, not much, but it was enough to pay off my Visa cards, pay off my car. I had 2 car loans, pay those off. Then I sold one of the cars and was able to recoup enough money to turn around and buy another car cash that was, lasted longer, wasn't quite as risky of a vehicle. And I just really downsized my life. I wanted my life to be small enough that I could sort of reach out and touch all 4 walls of it without having to move from the center, if that makes any sense. I mean, I wanted to know where everything was, financially, physically. I just needed to pull it all down to something simple. That's what I needed. I needed to simplify. I started doing that in 2002. February of 2002 is when I moved here. Boy, my family thought I was nuts. My friends thought I was crazy. I'm moving from this really nice house to a leaky, nearly valueless double-wide trailer out in the middle of nowhere, except for, lots of snakes and tarantulas and oak trees is pretty much where I live. And they didn't get it. And I didn't get it either, but something told me I needed to do it, and I needed to do it now. So I did. I am so glad I did, because when my company closed in 2005, I was able to weather that storm of joblessness for quite a long time with the money that I'd saved and living inside this new small lifestyle that didn't require nearly the income as my previous life required. So that was not me being smart. That was me just listening to my little voice. I'm glad my little voice is smarter than I am, because I probably wouldn't be standing here today, probably wouldn't be sitting in this chair today if I hadn't listened to it. So think about that in your own lives. I know what I just read is going to be incendiary, because it sounds like, oh, well, just blindly follow Donald Trump. I know that's what it sounds like. But you need to think about where we are in a much broader terms. The people that we need to link hands with and protect, so that they can protect us back. That's everyone. That's not just the folks that are on our team. That's, the social justice warrior who lives next door and the rabid Trump supporter who lives on the other side. The 3 of us, and me in the center who didn't know what to do. The 3 of us need to band together. This is not about the government, and it is not about politics. It's about us, we the people, holding on to our society, figuring out what it is we want, and then moving forward into the next era, hopefully with our country intact. And there's no guarantee it will be. So, on that note, I'm going to say bye-bye. I'm going to go take a shower, get dressed, go hang out with my friend Beverly for the day, and I will come back and talk to you some more about the fourth turning tomorrow. Bye!